Hello and welcome to Ion Bethel. I'm Paul and Prody, your host, and today we have with us the Republican-endorsed candidate for First Selectman, Larry Kravis. Larry, welcome to Ion Bethel.
Thank you. Good to be here again.
Welcome back. Now, you're out busy on the campaign trail. We're in our last days of the campaign. Why don't you give us an idea of where you've been and what you hear along the way?
I have been to more houses than I have been able to count, and I'm getting a number of questions. And what I thought I'd do tonight, rather than you asking me questions, I'd like to play back some of what I'm hearing from the voters out there. And the first question I get is, you're a member of the Board of Ed.
Right.
And as First Selectman, what does that mean for us? Does that mean that we're going to have more spending on education and that it'll be done to the neglect of the town side? And you know, I think it's important for everybody to understand that the responsibilities that a Board of Ed member has. We have oversight over the operation and the funding and the curriculum. We have oversight over education on behalf of the taxpayers.
Right.
And we have a due diligence responsibility that when it comes time to put together our annual budget, that we are looking at items line by line, that there will be proposals made that we have to make sure are affordable under the monies that will be allocated to the Board of Ed.
Right.
There's another check that goes on after we put that budget together. So we don't do it in a vacuum. I mean, we will look item by item. Last year we started the process in early August because of how we were feeling about the economic environment in the state and nationally. And we got a head start on this issue because we knew there was going to be a lot that would be confronting us. And sure enough, in October, November, everybody knows what happened to the economy across the country. And we had a head start on that. We were able to put in freezes on discretionary spending. Nothing could be approved unless it was brought to the Board of Ed and justified. We were able to get concessions by way of salary actions, no salary actions for non-union people. And I sat in on at least 2 out of 3 meetings that we had with the union personnel, with the teachers and the paraprofessionals and the custodians, to talk about concessions that we would have liked them to make. It was a difficult meeting with the teachers union because they felt that they weren't getting the right information from the town. We started with $1.5 million revenue shortfall problem in November, which changed to $1 million and then dropped to $500,000 and dropped to $300,000. And meeting after meeting that we had with the teachers union, they were saying, what is it you want us to do? We're not getting information that we can count on, so we don't know how to go about that. After we put the budget together, there's another check that's done by the Board of Finance.
Right.
The Board of Education does not have the final say on the money that's spent on education. The Board of Finance comes in, they look at what, again, is going to be affordable based on collections, and if necessary, they send us back, which they did last year, to take another look at our budget and to take some more spending out so that we could get down to a level that they believed would be accepted by the taxpayer. And the taxpayer is the third check.
Right.
You know, when the Board of Finance takes a budget to the taxpayer at referendum time, there's an opportunity there, again, for someone to say, you know, we can't afford that, we don't support it, and then we start again all over again. So it's a misconception to say that the Board of Ed has total control. It's also a misconception to think that there are a lot of things being rubber stamped. last year I sat in on the paraprofessional negotiating contract. And there was a 5-month-long process in order to sit down with that group. And I don't believe that that happens regularly. Someone for the Board of Ed sits in on that contract negotiation to bring that board's perspective and oversight to those talks. In that process, I believe we ended up with a contract that won for the paraprofessionals, it won for the Board of Ed, and it won for the town. It was a win-win all the way along. Okay. I just sat in on the teacher contract negotiation. I actually chaired that committee. And there, too, we had a good meeting. I'm not at liberty to discuss any of the details, but we did talk about health plan and health plan contribution. In the town meetings, that question always comes up. Why is it that in some of these contracts, some of these contribution rates are a lot less than what I'm expected to pay by myself, either in my own policy or through my company? We talked about that. We talked about the affordability. The going-in position was we can't continue to go at this thing at 3.5% to 5% recommendations per year over 3 years because that's not affordable. Right. When that contract is ratified and brought again in front of the Board of Ed, I believe too that people will see that we did the job that they expect us to do as taxpayers in this economic environment. The other question that I'm getting has to do about economic development and land use. Right. And I have been studying a lot, as I did when I went on to the Board of Ed, bringing myself up to speed. And I have taken a look as best I could at this point in my education on the 2007 Plan of Conservation and Development, which that, in my opinion, is excellent work. It's a 10-year look at Bethel and where Bethel ought to be over that 10-year period, a roadmap for the town to follow. Right. And I took out a page from it because I thought some of the excerpts from that opening commentary are good for people to understand and hear. This is from the Plan for Conservation and Development and where they see Bethel going over the next 10-year time horizon. And to quote, "Bethel is a residential sanctuary. We must proactively preserve, protect, promote, and enhance its assets. Commercial growth is important to Bethel's future, and we will encourage opportunities for businesses while assuring that commercial development is in harmony with the town's residential character. In the village center, we want to encourage preservation of the village values that exist, and that is a community of generations that welcome residents of all ages, a friendly, casual, and safe community, a residential haven dotted with green space that continues to provide well-designed and diverse housing. And beyond the village, which would encompass the Route 6 corridor, right, preservation and increase of Bethel's open spaces is our highest priority. Appropriate cluster housing will provide more opportunities for open spaces. There will be environmental sensitivity. Commercial growth, we wish to encourage businesses to locate in and remain in Bethel, right, and participate in the town. Growth of the commercial offerings along that Route 6 corridor and in the downtown area should be consistent with the charm and the historic nature of the village center. And all commercial development, whether in the village or on Route 6 or in between, aesthetic appropriateness that is consistent with the charm of our town will be paramount. And environmental sensitivity and open space preservation will be critical.
Right.
I mean, those are the operating guidelines within this plan that speak a lot to some of the concerns that people have about how Route 6 will be developed,
right,
and what we bring in there. When you take the work that has just been done on the 2009 zoning regulations and the update that was made to that, and link it with this 2007 plan, begin to get a fairly good idea of the roadmap that is looked to be followed for land use and for economic development and for the preservation of Bethel as we all know it, those people that have lived here for a long period of time. Those zoning regulations were updated so that they are easier to understand and easier to navigate, so that they incorporate all of the latest state statutes, and so that they include the modern development themes and some of the new zoning techniques that will bring us bring things relevant to the way we look to have different areas in town developed.
Right.
One of the things that needs to happen is to, coincident with these two plans, is to expand the charter and the focus of the Economic Development Commission. We're proposing that this be a nonpartisan group, that we get the very best expertise and thinking onto that commission, that commission has a heightened sense of urgency. As I've said before, we're not the only ones looking to improve economic well-being for our towns. If you take all of the articles that have appeared in the paper and lay them side by side, whether you're talking about the future statements that were made by the 4 contestants for first selectman in Newtown, or the 3 in Brookfield, or ours, at least 2 of us cared to respond about the future of Bethel. And lay them side by side, you will see that there are a lot of common issues, and the most common one is economic development. We all know that in this environment there are not a lot of businesses looking to expand. And we need to be on the forefront of this in order to make sure that our voice is heard, that the assets of Bethel are fully understood and marketed properly. And I would like to see this commission come to us with their proposals by the end of June of 2010, and that we try to get an action plan in place by the end of the year in 2010, and sooner if we can do that. I think we also need to, once we have this plan fully developed and an action timetable identified, I believe we need to professionally market Bethel and its assets and the Route 6 corridor and Clark Park in order to be out in the forefront. We've said this before, Richfield is doing that, and we need to do that too if we want to participate in what is available out there. The third question that that I have been asked about is what we're going to do for seniors. I have a very good friend of mine that I worked with for 30 years that manages the program, the senior program and the veterans program on behalf of Bethel. And these people, in fact, are Bethel. They help build this community, and it's hurtful to hear that some of them may have to leave, sell whatever property they have, and leave because they can no longer afford to live here. They had nothing to do with causing the Wall Street problem, but they are living with the consequences of that greed that existed there. And we can't have them leaving town. because they can't live here anymore. They helped build this town to be what it is today. We will commit that the eligibility requirements for the direct tax relief that they are eligible for based on their gross adjusted income and based on their Social Security payments is reviewed every year, and if necessary, adjusted to reflect changes in the Social Security cost of living adjustment. I know the plan for 2010 will be based on the fact that the COLA for Social Security was adjusted by, I believe, upwards of 5%. The decision in 2010 not to have a COLA, which would be reflected in this program in the subsequent year, is something that we're going to have to deal with. But we need to look at the current condition and the plan that we're going to go into and take that 5% Social Security adjustment into account. We also need to be looking at programs that are available throughout the state.
Right.
We know of one that Danbury has put into effect, and that is a $600 adjustment to the tax base for seniors if they volunteer their time and do mentoring within the school programs that they have, or even in adult education. There are other programs like that that are available throughout the state of Connecticut, and I'm going to ask John to do a survey that gathers all of those programs together, how well they're working, and whether or not they have applicability for Bethel. Some of these, I suspect, one of the big consideration will be the impact of tax revenue as you bundle programs together, but it's something that we're going to have to look at to make sure that we are providing what other towns may be doing and what is right for that senior tax base. Right. And the same goes to the veterans. Their program is based on assessment of personal property and homes, and I suspect there are programs throughout the state that are available there too. That we need to gather information on and decide as a town whether they have applicability to our seniors and to our veterans.
Okay.
Those are the three key questions that we have. I know there's something that I would like to do that is probably going to be out of the ordinary.
All right.
And that is on behalf of the work that I have done in the health department on emergency preparedness, and specifically on this whole influenza thing in light of President Obama declaring, I understand now, that the swine flu has become an epidemic. He did declare a couple of days ago that it was in a national emergency.
All right.
We have an issue of getting the message out on just how the H1N1 vaccine, when it is available, and in the quantities that it will be available, how it's going to be handled. And I called Laura Vasile this afternoon and asked her if there was something that, on behalf of the health departments in Bethel and Reading, that I could put out to the people that are watching this telecast that will help them understand just how things are going to be done. We rely a lot on the internet, and we rely a lot on people calling in, but I think this is an opportunity to get a message out there. So I'm going to do that as a public service announcement. All towns and cities, including Bethel, Reading, and Ridgefield, have H1N1 teams preparing to provide H1N1 vaccinations to residents who request it.
All right.
This virus, H1N1, appears to spread rapidly in young people and potentially can cause serious illness in them. Right now, H1N1 vaccine availability is extremely limited in Connecticut and throughout the U.S. Residents should contact their primary care physician to determine if their doctor will be providing the H1N1 vaccination to their patients. If you cannot get the H1N1 vaccination from your primary care doctor, the Bethel, Reading, and Ridgefield health departments will provide the vaccine by appointment-only clinics, starting with people in the subset of target groups which are most at risk during the time of limited vaccine availability. Because the vaccine is limited, the state of Connecticut requires healthcare providers to follow the Center for Disease Control, CDC, protocol for distribution of vaccine first to infants, children, and people at the highest risk of serious complications of illness. Those priority groups for H1 vaccinations, H1N1 vaccinations, as this vaccine becomes more available are, number one, all children age 6 months through 4 years, 6 months through 59 months of age. Healthy children 5 through 6 years of age. Children 5 through 18 years with high-risk medical conditions. And household contacts and caregivers of infants less than 6 months of age. And last and probably most importantly, pregnant women. The second category of people that will be vaccinated when more vaccine is available would include healthcare workers in physician offices, private organizations, and emergency medical service personnel, persons aged 6 months through 24 years of age, and persons aged 25 through 64 who have medical conditions that have put them at higher risk for influenza-related complications. The last group would be healthy adults. We consider this three-step inoculation plan with vaccinations spanning from October 2009 through March of 2010. Bethel and Reading residents who fall in any of the current priority categories should contact the Bethel Health Department at 203-794-8539 to be placed on the appointment-only clinic list. Any Ridgefield residents that could be hearing this should contact the Ridgefield Visiting Nurses Association at 203-438-5555. In December and January, we anticipate the H1N1 clinics to be open to the general public at large. Bethel's leader team is working diligently to set up and provide these clinics as vaccine is received, and this is signed by Laura Vasile, Director of the Health Department in Bethel.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Larry, we got about 4 minutes left. I just wanted to recap. You talked about in the beginning the due diligence in putting together the budget for the Board of Education. I wonder, how many times did that go out to referendum? Was it just one time in the past?
Because we started that whole process in August of last year in anticipation of the severe problems that eventually in October, November hit everybody throughout the state and throughout this country, we put together a budget plan that went to one vote.
Okay.
It went through the Board of Finance,
right.
And there were some challenges raised, appropriately so. But when the final plan was put together and put out to vote by the Board of Finance, it went through on one vote. And I believe that was because of the line-by-line review that we went through on that budget, and because of the working relationship that this oversight committee, the Board of Education, responsible to the taxpayers and the school administration, because of that relationship, that working relationship that we had, dealing with the issues that confronted everybody across this country.
Right. And we also had the issue with economic development, which you explained the plan of development and the zoning laws and how they kind of
They mesh together,
Right.
and in my opinion, they become the foundation for what it is we're going to ask the Economic Development Commission
Right.
to be involved in. They are not independently non-related studies. In my opinion, the 2007 Plan for Conservation and Development is an excellent plan that will take us where we really need to be over the next 10 years. And the new zoning regulations complement that plan so that we can make it easier for businesses that we want to attract to Bethel to come here and do business with us. These are businesses that we need to be here for a long period of time.
Right.
And the risk of having a lot of small independent businesses in a strip mall kind of environment is, and I know because my wife is involved in a small business like that, there are not many of them that are very successful beyond 6 months to a year.
Right.
And if you make it to a 5-year anniversary, you are really doing well and you're going to be around for a period of time. So we need businesses that bring in revenue and that set Bethel as a place where they want their employees to work and to live, and where they want to become a part of this community, not unlike Duracell.
Right.
And Eaton and some of the other big companies that we have here that generate the revenue we need.
Right. And then finally, we talked about the senior and veterans tax benefits. We don't have a whole lot of time to talk about those, but what I want to point out is that you are the first selectman candidate that has demonstrated that you have a plan, that you have a detail orientation toward that plan moving forward. We've seen on the Democrat side that they basically are duplicating a lot of what you're talking about, but we haven't really heard anything. And then finally, the third-party challenger seems to talk about what the past is all about. So I think the important thing that we need to emphasize to the people that are watching the show is that Larry Kravis is well studied and he's ready to sit and take that office of First Selectman with a plan for the future to the benefit of the people of Bethel. And Larry, I'd like to thank you for being on Eye on Bethel. And for Eye on Bethel, I am Paul Improta. Have a great week.
Thank you.